Hello, everyone. In this talk, my guest is Dudley Ackerman. Dudley Ackerman was an instrumental in helping me develop the EasyWriter program back in the day when EasyWriter was first being developed. EasyWriter, of course, was the word processor program that I first developed a long, long time ago to run on the Apple II. And Dudley was part of the code review. He did code review. He offered suggestions on making it a little bit better, and I integrated his code in. Dudley also was part of the fourth interest group, and fourth was the programming language that we used to develop EasyWriter. So, Maestro Ackerman, we first met a long time ago. When did we meet? Did you remember?
1980.
Oh my God. How many people are still alive in 1980?
Well, Pat Caffrey is. He was at the first Apple Corps meeting around in 1978, and you came up to me at the Apple Corps meeting when it was at Fort Mason in San Francisco, and mentioned Forth and if I might be interested. And I went over to you where you were living then in Oakland.
Yeah, I was at the work furlough program, and while I was at the work furlough program, that was when I got my first copy of Figforth,
That's right.
and I got it on my Apple II with from Bill Ragsdale. Now I couldn't do a metacompiler then, so I had to get the the object code for Forth then. I had to trim down to 4K as a basic Forth functions without all the extra stuff to it. Later on, of course, I wrote an editor and all that stuff, just so I could edit the Forth screens and all that.
So you gave me the fourth
And
and
then
for
I
the
think I got it working with read write track sector on the disk through Andy Hertzfeld. Andy Hertzfeld at that time he wasn't working at Apple. He was at the Lawrence Hall of Science as I remember correctly.
oh,
And we had meetings up there, and he gave me the assembly language routines for doing copying read write track sector routines. And with that, I was able to basically do a fourth block function, which meant I could read and write blocks of 10, 24 bytes of chunks of memory. And that was how Forth did. Forth did not have a file system. You could only just write 10,
right,
24 bytes of data directly to disk
right.
as for screen. And so
So you showed it to me, and that's how I learned it, and then so I started a subgroup on Apple Corps for fourth users, and Jim Lynch was also around at that time.
do you still know
And
how to reach him?
oh no, I don't.
Do you remember his phone number?
No, I had no contact with him directly. I only knew
Yeah,
him
I know he
through.
was living in Alameda.
Oh, well, okay. Pat Caffrey is still living in Oakland.
So what was your first program that you wrote in Forth?
Well, I think the first one was the extending the number of sectors that you could read on a floppy disk, 5 1/4 disk,
Right.
from 48, I think it was 48 to 64 sectors. And I made a few $100s selling that as an add-on to your Captain Software Fourth.
Oh, so before, how many Forth screens could I get on a disk before you did your magic?
It was, I believe, 48 disks. That would be like 48K basically. I was able to extend it to 64. I don't remember what the trick was to doing that or why it couldn't have been 64 to begin with.
Remember, it had to do with sectoring. It had to do with interleave and stuff. Because the
Mm.
original interleave was changed. Because when Andy gave me some different interleave things,
Uh-huh.
I changed the interleave on the disk.
That
So
sounds right.
it would read it twice as fast.
Oh, okay. I don't.
But it wasn't
Oh,
compatible with Apple, which was fine with me because to me it was just let it have its own system. So we did. See.
so my first job was for a dating service, but that wasn't in Forth. But after that job in 1980, around 1982, I got a job doing theater, a program doing theater lighting using Forth on a Commodore. And that, I believe, ended up working and being used. That was very nice. I got a couple jobs using smaller computers, not Apple's. And I ended up using Forth for automation. They were using computer-controlled cameras to pan and zoom over still images.
How was
It,
the fourth connected to the camera? How was the interface between the software, the bytes and bits coming off from the computer into the camera? How was that controlled?
through actuators, yeah,
So
through,
did you like read and write to it? Was it memory mapping?
yeah, there was the ability to memory map. Well, there were some output pins.
Remember the Apple did not have an I/O system.
It had
Everything on
it
the Apple
it
had
had
was
it had four outputs that you could send electric signals. You could send audio out on it. Maybe it was on the uh,
because I remember too that
memory card.
it had a serial port and you could connect it to
Yeah,
a serial port and do it that
right,
way.
right. You're right. That's what it was. Because we used it to make music. You send the output to a speaker, you could program a very simple audio at the
Yeah,
beginning.
remember I made a music system on Fourth
That's right. You
that you
did.
draw the waveform and it would play that waveform, remember?
Yeah, did that after.
It did a Fourier transform. So you would draw the frequency of it, and it would do a fast Fourier transform and make it into a change it from a frequency domain to a time domain.
Right, right.
Or that?
Yeah,
I
I
did
don't
a
remember.
256 fast Fourier transform.
I don't remember if that. I don't remember
And
if any of these
it took about less than half a second to do a transform on an Apple II.
did that program was it
I wrote it
commercial?
in Forth, of course, and I believe that I dropped down to assembly language for that because I wanted the speed.
I took an assembly language course from Andy Hertzfeld in
I
Berkeley.
remember that.
Yeah,
He used to teach at the Lawrence Hall of Science on Wednesdays or something like that. Remember that? Was it
yeah. That's when I
every week? We'd
where
have a
yeah.
group of people up there. How many people would you think were up there? Do you
Oh,
remember?
there were about a dozen.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah. And then during that time, I was at the work furlough program. I was allowed to go up to the Lawrence Hall of Science and meet with you guys. And
Hmm. Hmm.
but I had to get back before 10 o'clock, I think, and I had a curfew.
Right. I remember.
If I'm late, then they'll issue a warrant for my arrest. It was pretty crazy.
And then that's when we started doing exercises together.
Yeah, yeah. And
For your
after that,
back.
so didn't you weren't you part of Captain Software as far as doing the EasyWriter? Did you work on EasyWriter?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but you were doing that with Matthew, right?
Yeah, Matthew. Boy, if I could get him on an interview, man, oh, that would be absolutely epic, man. Because
It'd be,
Matthew has been
it
my
would be.
partner with Captain
Well,
Software
yeah.
forever. You know what I mean? He was the one that just organized the whole thing. Him and Michelle. He did the accounting,
Hmm.
all that stuff. Remember? And
Yeah.
at when we released EasyWriter at the Homebrew Computer Club, we had it on discs.
Well,
And
I went
uh,
with him to the 50th reunion of the homebrew
when was
band
that?
about 5, 7 years ago.
Oh yeah, because okay, Matthew he got a booth at the West Coast Computer Fair. It was the fourth West Coast Computer Fair, as I recall, and right next door to the Fourth Interest Group booth. So the Fourth Interest Group booth was here, and the Apple Corps booth was there.
Right, right.
So we were at the Apple Corps booth demonstrating EasyWriter,
Uh-huh.
and then people would come up and say, "What language was it written in?" I'll say, "Well, I was written in Forth," and I go to the booth next door. Very convenient. Kind of
Uh-huh.
symbiotic relationship here between Forth and the Apple too, you know.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, it was the only language for a
And that
while.
was the time that do you remember that Were you there at the show at the fair?
I remember that,
Do you
yeah.
remember do you remember when Andy Wigginton or one of I think it was Andy or Chris Espinosa, and I'm not sure which one it was, threw a pie in Dave Gordon's face. Remember?
No, I don't. I remember
Oh,
that.
Steve come up to me, Steve Wozniak come up to me at my booth, at our booth, and says, "Go over to the Apple booth right away. There's going to be an incident." I said, "Oh yeah, okay." So I moseyed on over there, and I just got over there just in time to see a beautiful right hand hook right into Dave Gordon's face, and it was an apple cream pie. It had to have an apple in it, of course.
I don't, who was Dave Gordon that he
Dave
deserved
Gordon was the Southern Computer Club group, and he had copied the original ROM because remember that Apple II went from 48K to
40 years?
64K.
Right, memory.
But then they also, if I remember correctly, had a new ROM operating system, ROM, and that ROM
Uh,
had a better integer basic with a better. It had lowercase and uppercase and all that stuff. It had
Sweet
extra
Six.
features that the Apple II did not have. And so what he did was he copied the ROM onto a disk. He was demonstrating that at the Apple Core booth. And he wasn't supposed to do that because
It
it was
wasn't.
not supposed to be released yet. And Dave Gordon had a booth at the show too. He was demonstrating the new Apple ROM, but it was really in a disk. It was not a ROM at that point. But he demonstrated the features. Apple found out about it, and
Mm.
well, we got to send somebody over there to for some divine justice, as it were, in the form of an apple cream pie.
So, as a programmer, I wasn't too concerned about what happens to my applications, how commercially successful or not they were. Most of them, the companies I worked for didn't last very long, 2 or 3 years at the most. But I did work for with Pat Caffrey on a bunch of fourth projects, one for NASA, one for PG&E.
What were you doing for the NASA one?
For NASA, we were comparing forth a new chip to see which would be better for this chip, which language would be more efficient, Forth or Fortran, or maybe a third language, I forgot.
Probably C.
That was with Tom Gregory. He joined my fourth users group. So he got us that contract at NASA. And the other guy was Art Graham, which we did a program to configure output of Microsoft Word for any printer that came along.
There's all kinds of problems with Microsoft Word with printers because they didn't. There were so many different printers out there. We were really flexible with EasyWriter. As soon as we had a printer, I had a driver written on the printer for within a half an hour. We had a
Right.
Videx, the M&R Enterprises 80 column card, and then we had Videx, M&R Enterprises. Do you remember the other two? I don't remember what they were. They were
Mm,
80 column cards. They were like third party 80 column cards.
right.
And when
We had
EasyWriter and Amateur came up no, the original EasyWriter came up on, it would give you the choice of which card you were to choose which card it was. It would load in the driver for that card, and it would then fix it it appended it right to the object code of Forth. I can remember during a really long compile time. While it was compiling, I was actually editing the code while it was compiling before it actually compiled the screen that I edited on. So
and then
I had screen number 85 or something like that, right? And it was good. It was compiling. It was going 24. It would compile this slow, 24, 25, 20. It took a long time, you know? And so what
uh,
I had to make a change, and I didn't want to stop the compiler, so I just edited it right there before the compiler got to it and compile it in.
that's a good one. And both Art and Tom Gregory, both of them had projects. This is around late 80s. They both Art had a contact at somewhere in the East Bay school system. So I wrote a program that he was going to shop around and get them to the school system to use. This is a custom program that I wrote for
Oh,
Art.
okay.
He designed it, and I I wrote it in Forth, and it had multitasking where you could move for whole sections of code into the Forth that was running, um, and move sections in and out to
How did
get.
you do the multitasking?
Well, you in assembly, you can do simple switch a user from one user to another.
Oh, in
You
other
put,
words, the inner compiler of Forth.
it was what they call it,
I remember
cooperative.
Forth has got an inner compiler and an outer compiler. Remember?
Yeah, well, this was using already compiled code, whole sections of code that you could move in and out of the Forth. It was clever, but it was tricky. It didn't always work perfectly.
I remember Andy Hertzfeld did the multi-finder for the Apple. Remember, the Apple only had one task that you could do at a time. That's only one task.
Right.
Andy Hertzfeld then wrote the multi-finder.
So
There
you
would be
could
more than one.
switch, you could switch in,
Yeah, the switcher. That's right, the switcher. Yeah.
you could change the whole desktop from
Later on, Andy did the
separate.
complete multi-finder, which lets you
Yeah.
do more than one operation at a time. Then Apple endorsed that into one of its products, or the later Apple Macintoshes came out. They would have the multi-finder.
Right.
Remember
Multi.
that I had the hyperdrive on my Mac, because Macs only had a 3 1/4 inch floppy. That was all it had. You
We had a 10 megabyte hard drive around 1985-ish
And then
on the Mac.
we had a big Corvus, one of those hundred
Yeah,
pound hard
exactly.
drives.
Right. Oh,
And
yeah.
so I wrote the assembly language to put the four screens on the hard drive on the. And that became my main development environment, because what we had these ribbon cables connecting all these, and they had the Corvus constellation. Remember that?
No.
We could have a card, and it's got a ribbon cable connected to the card.
Oh,
You plug that into your Apple on one of your
huh.
slots.
Right.
Have other Apples, and that would go to this constellation, which is on the hard drive. And then
Constellation.
another ribbon cable would go to another Mac. And it
You
was an
could,
Apple, not a Mac.
oh, yeah, you could daisy chain them.
Yeah, yeah. So we
Uh,
had when we were working up at on Kensington. Remember Kensington? That's where we worked on EasyWriter. That was EasyWriter Pro that we worked on that up there.
no, I don't remember uh, being up there. I was off on my own. Well, then I went to Arnowitz where we both ended up.
Oh, I remember that. Do you remember the application called?
Well, there was the animals. It was one application
I
that
didn't
I
do the
worked on.
animals. I did the one with flight.
Flight. There was one that used laser discs for education. I
Right,
remember
yeah.
it
And I
was like
think we did that. I think we did that in MPW, didn't we?
right. It was C++ plus
Mac
plus
Programmers Workshop.
workshop.
That's what they called it.
Wasn't that C++? Plus plus? What
No, it
was?
was just C, but it was kind of like this shell that you could like select parts of the command, copy it, and then it would just execute it. You select a bunch of commands and then paste it into the operating system, and it would execute them right away. And so
Well,
we had
what like?
little mini little scripts that we had that were doing various different things.
Hmm.
It was a shell-driven system. It wasn't like of using the Finder or anything.
I don't.
You had an editor, and you could type in the thing in the editor. You could make edited changes to it, but it's also the command line window as well.
Uh-huh.
So you
I don't
simply
remember.
copy. It simply had copied parts of the editor
Hmm.
and copy that directly. One key, I'd take the whole thing and execute it. So we would have a bunch of build instructions, and it would copy that into the compiler, and it would compile the code. The other system that they came out with too, well, my very first C programming language was done with Consular C.
What what kind? Consular?
Consular, yeah, Consular C. It's very primitive. I had to do about 30 disk swaps just to be able to compile Hello World. It was that crude. I swear, it was just one of the most arduous ways of developing I could ever see.
That must have
Really
been very,
developed very, very small programs at that time
that must have
because it
been
was
early.
originally designed for hard disks.
By 1990s, we had real C programming language that we could
Well,
use.
there was, yeah, there was,
Borland C or
and then of course, the original language that Macintosh came out with was, of course, Pascal.
well, there was the Macforth.
Yeah, Macforth came by later.
Yeah, it wasn't right at the beginning, but it
No,
was
the
pretty
only thing you
early.
had was Pascal or assembly.
Macforth was for the Macintosh,
And I only had assembly, and we ran across this guy, Dan Sabsay, I think it was. And he thought about having this very nice little application program called Mac Prompter.
which did what?
It was like a teleprompter on the Mac.
Oh,
You got scrolling text scrolling down, and you could slide with the mouse up and down. You could speed up or slow down the text as it was scrolling, and it would be like a teleprompter. I wrote that in assembly language on the 6502.
that's
There was
another.
no high-level language available at the time that I could use.
That was another fourth project that Pat Caffrey and I did for Apple,
Yeah, they had Consular C. They were selling it for like 225 bucks. I didn't have the money for that. I had the Macintosh assembler for 6,800, and I wrote everything in assembly. In fact,
68.
that's how I learned how to program all these different machines. I'd always start at the lowest level possible, like on the Apple II. I
Mhm.
programmed an Apple 6502. And then when it moved over to the IBM, I programmed it in 8086 or
Uh,
8088 in that case.
we wrote a program for Apple that tested disk drives that was distributed around the world. They used it, but we wrote it in Forth, and they looked at it and said, "No, we can't use Forth. It has to be written in C." So we wrote a C on top of the Forth that looked like C, but it was actually calling all the Forth
Well,
routines.
Forth is such a low-level language that
Hmm.
it's almost as good as C in certain cases.
Well,
There was a bunch of overhead. I remember in the next, when you go to next in where you always go into next for the next
yeah,
process to do, right?
the
Well, that
inner
was the little inner
loop,
processor that
loop.
all of the code would go through that next inner
Loop.
yeah, that they call it the inner compiler.
Yeah, inner. So it was a while before we got back to Forth. uh, In
Yeah, as
and
I remember correctly, the IBM the fourth running on the IBM was done with. Do you remember her name? You mentioned.
Elizabeth rather.
Yeah, Elizabeth Rather. Yeah, and she was the head person in doing the IBM fourth for the IBM PC. I think also she did it on the Apple, but I'm not sure. But that fourth was also multitasking fourth. And I
Hmm.
dug down
Hmm.
into the code to see how she did it, and it's amazing how it was clever how it was done. It was like, wow, I never thought of that. I looked at the inner compiler of that port that she had. It was really crazy good. The problem is using that Porth system, every program that I had to write had to be written in Porth. And so in order for me to sell the program, I had to also sell the Porth
Right.
because I couldn't precompile it. But like EasyWriter, I precompiled it down.
Mm-hmm.
But the original EasyWriter code that I originally wrote, I didn't have the meta compiler that Bill Ragsdale had because he wanted to sell it for like 150 bucks, so they didn't have the money. So what I did was I just pre-compiled it with all the headers already in there. So all of the fourth words were already in there. But I had a little secret code that I used, a bunch of secret commands that would allow me to go into fourth to fix some EasyWriter problems. One of our EasyWriter customers had an issue, and in order for me to solve it, because remember, once we built the runtime version of it, and when we ran it, nobody ever even knew it was written in Forth. But I had a secret command that would break down into Forth so that I could go into the Forth compiler or into the Forth system and look around and see what was going on. Because remember, I had a Forth compiler as well.
I started working for two people writing Forth systems, one for Ed Bronstein's printer company to manage his
Oh,
inventory.
I remember them.
And John Peters had he's an electrician who wanted an estimating program. We started around 1990 and we were still working on it up till a few years ago for 20 years until he didn't need an estimating program anymore. But that was all Forth, and he learned it just to be able to use that program. He learned Forth and he was able to modify it and maintain it himself.
Well, as you remember, Forth was originally developed at the Kitt Peak Observatory by Charles
Sure.
Moore.
Yeah.
In fact, I hope to be getting an interview with Charles Moore. I would certainly love to have him on one of my podcasts for sure.
That guy who moderates the FIG meetings once a month would know how to get in touch with him.
Anyway,
Yeah,
getting back to
that's
the
those are the early days. We moved on to Python with you got me into with Shop IP.
right, Shop IP. We were trying to do an e-commerce company, but later on I hooked up with John Chen, and he said, well, "Let's do a security company, and let's make firewalls instead." I says,
Uh,
"Fine." So we were
right,
built around OpenBSD at that point, remember? And what we were trying to
uh,
do, we were trying to sell these U1 cabinets with
right,
a
right,
complete computer security system on it built in already,
right, right.
and it would be like a firewall, and you could control it by snort.
It was
Snort
probably
was the IDS in
right.
intrusion check, but then we changed it into an IPS that
Mhm.
allow us to be able to select the different snort rules we wanted to do for blocking certain attack vectors and stuff like that. And when the attack came in, it would automatically block the attacker.
Right, right.
That was a Shop IP project.
Well, um, it only lasted about a year.
Yeah,
There
that's
was
true. Uh,
problems
it was
with
a strange story involved in there. But
money.
yeah, what would happen was that Steve Ennis took over the project. I wanted to go to Berlin to the Love Parade, and I also had a talk that I had to give in Berlin as well. So I planned to talk around Love Parade. So I went to the Love Parade in Berlin, and I also went to that meeting in Germany. And Dan said it was a very critical time, and I learned a lot of stuff when I was there. In the meantime, John Chin took my source code for the
Right.
firewall thing or whatever,
Yeah.
and took it over, and he wouldn't share the source code anymore. Then what he did was we're going to give a big demonstration for the Monterey Naval Academy, and they liked the program, and we gave him a trial version of it, but we gave a 30-day trial period. After that, the key would expire after 30 days. But for them, I didn't want it to expire. But Steve Ennis went in there and activated the expiration date.
Mm.
And that was a bad deal because when you sell something to the government, you don't have it expire in 30 days. And that was when I quit. I was so upset. I didn't want to get involved in any application that would be developed for the government and then have it cut out. I was really, really mad. And so I
Hmm.
said, I'm not going to get involved anymore. So I told Dan and everybody says, I'm done. I'm not having anything to do with Shop IP anymore.
Yes, it all fell apart. Yeah.
Definitely. And I was not very happy with the way he was doing it. We were doing Postgres SQL at the moment, at the time. We were doing it in Python.
I think I used Forth for my program I wrote for New Jersey, giving people who use solar energy credits for using solar energy and feeding it back into the grid.
Yeah, feeding into the grid.
And then the company that I did it for was sold, and they didn't like Forth because they wouldn't be able to maintain it. So they took it in-house and converted it to C.
I've been pretty much off the grid, on my
Huh.
on my system here. I was using a 2.5 kilowatt EcoFlow solar generator and three solar panels out in the back there.
Um, so I didn't get to use fourth again until John Peters wanted me a fourth for educational purposes online. So we had a web interface that talked directly to a Microsoft Surface computer running Win32 fourth, which is what I used for John, and it's been running for 2 years. It's
You know,
still
the easiest way to
still
interface all
online.
these different languages, like right now I'm programming in Flutter, okay? But I want to
Right,
also call some Python code. There's this great server called Flask.
right.
And so I use the Flask as a as an API into Python. Worked quite well.
And I looked at Cursor. It's a pretty amazing, impressive.
That's what I'm using now is Cursor. Yeah. I haven't programmed a line of code at all. In fact, I don't even know one line of I don't even know one line of Flutter. But I found out that the best language to use with the VS Code's branch called Cursor was to basically use Flutter. I've tried React. Okay, I've tried Python. I've tried React, and so I even tried some Mac Swift stuff. But for multi-platform programming, the best language to use is Flutter because it's so much less BS you had to do. You still had to do a lot of BS with Apple. You had to use Xcode because you had to use Xcode to give it the authentication keys to authenticate the program so it would work on a Mac,
Right.
and on the iPhone and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Not so much problem with Android and with the other things. So right now, my application runs on iOS, runs on Android, runs on the web, it runs on native Mac OS and IBM Windows, and one code base does it all.
Is Flutter a language?
It's based around Dart, D-A-R-T.
I don't know that.
Yeah, it's an interesting language. A lot of people that are doing multi-platform programs are now using Flutter because it's so easy to develop applications. And now with the advent of Cursor, I don't have to worry about a line of code. I just tell it in English what I want it to do, and it writes the code for me, and I don't have to worry about it. And it works.
So you use Cursor as the AI to create using Flutter,
Flutter is the high, yeah. Flutter is the
the framework, the
well,
language.
that's the client side. Okay.
Or,
But then on the server side, I use Python.
huh, uh,
Getting Flutter to talk to Python, I used Flask.
okay. It's not completely clear how that works, but I guess
Flask is nothing more than a web server. It's
you
really
just
easy to use.
you
You
just
spin one up in minutes.
just ask Cursor to do it for you.
Oh, of course, Cursor does everything for me.
Hmm.
It's so great. I want to design an application that has like, three form inputs, this, and this. I want it to interface to a database out on the cloud somewhere. And it gives you a choice of which one to use. I guess I want this one here. That looks good because I've already got that built in. And so it goes through the installation instructions, everything. It just does everything for me. I don't have to worry about nothing. Because my problem is that I never was a programmer to begin with, and I admit this right away. I never was a programmer. I was horrible at programming.
Hmm.
I took I took in college, I took Fortran at San Jose City College when working on an IBM 360. We had these big punch cards.
Were you working on a program to do a VoIP? Uh,
Yeah, yeah, we did that too. Oh, that's right. That was what I did with this company, and it was in Jersey. It was an island off the coast of the UK, and
huh,
that was for this Dubai company. And I actually went to Dubai
right, right.
to do that. Man, Dubai was an amazing experience. That was before they did that Palm Island thing. At the time, they were just building the
Right.
Burj Khalifa at the time. You know,
I I worked for 4 or 5 years for a company called Golden Spear,
we
which,
worked together. Remember? I worked for Golden State. By the way, speaking of
oh,
Golden
that's right.
Spear,
You got me that through
I
Tulsa.
got you that. And by the way, speaking of Golden Spear, the owner, Sate Soto,
Yeah,
remember him?
yeah. Well,
He
I
was
worked with him.
arrested.
Arrested for what?
Yeah, yeah, he got charged for doing some kind of scam thing. That was right after I bailed out. I bailed out once they because I had remember I went to Barcelona, Spain to talk to one of their programmers because they were doing this clothing program.
Right.
That was before AI.
They were using AI in Barcelona.
Well,
That was
yeah,
it.
but it was not really AI.
Really? I
No, it
didn't.
wasn't really. That was
Really?
that was before the real AI started coming out. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, yeah. It was
Yeah,
early
and then
on.
and then and then when I was in Europe at the time, I also met with Peter, and he was in Gdansk, Poland. And while I was in Germany, I went to Gdansk, Poland to meet with Peter.
I don't know who that is.
He was another one of the programmers that worked for Golden Spear.
Huh, I don't know. I was the main programmer there for 3 or 4 years
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
using JavaScript, or mostly.
yeah. I was still using Python at the time. See, a lot of back end stuff for me,
Yeah, but
middleware stuff.
they ran out of money, and
I
uh,
believe it because I think I
oh,
think Gold Saint Solo did was did a naughty thing and got busted for it, whatever he did.
well, I didn't get paid for a while, so I'm not unhappy he got busted. On the other hand, I liked him and I got along with him.
I got along with him fine too. I had not a problem with him at all.
Yeah, but company didn't make it.
Yeah. And then when I
But I
went to
am,
Barcelona, I was supposed to meet with some of the people there.
but I am using Forth now. The color script on VS Code, it's a VS Code extension that a Filipino guy that lives in Japan now wrote. You're doing day trading program with cursor and
I
Flutter.
can't talk about that.
Oh, well, I can talk
That's
about
going to be
what
a product. And
I,
if it's going to be a product, I can't talk about it.
I'm doing a day trading program in color script, which is a version of Color Forth.
Cool. Are you doing LTSM trading?
No, I don't do the trading. It's just it, we use information from Yahoo Finance webpage
Okay, yeah.
and TradingView webpage to see what analysts are recommending.
I
As
haven't started trading yet because I'm still trying to get that trading thing working.
yeah, I guess I'll be playing with it and getting used to it more. I use it every day when in my Brave browser. I ask a question, 4 or 5 times a day, and the AI built into the Brave browser tells me everything I need to know.
I can take I can copy some Hebrew text, just from a
Huh,
sign and paste it
uh,
into ChatGPT, and it tells you it translates it for me.
right.
Because I
Uh,
can do images now. I could give it a schematic, could draw a schematic diagram and ask it to identify the circuit for me. Identify the circuit for me. I could actually solve the circuit with a Spice-like program called LT Spice.
uh,
What it does, it takes like a linear circuit and calculates the values of resistors and capacitors needed to make a filter or something.
can you ask it to create the circuit for you to do something you want?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I asked ChatGPT to give me a network code for a filter, and it'll give me the network code for a filter.
Uh-huh.
I
Uh,
pass that network code directly into LT Spice, and it then calculates the values of resistor capacitors for a filter, draws the frequency response, the phase response over a certain frequency range. Let's end it at this point. So thank you, Bob, very much for the interview. I appreciate that.
okay.
Thank you all for tuning in and everything like that. And Bob, of course, thank you very much for your time.